You're listening to Eat, Play, Sex with Dr. Cat, the place to up-level that sexy life of yours, with expert talk on sex, love, and nutrition.
Marriage, my core question was, why is it so hard for people to have relationships or to be married? Why is it so difficult? Why does it have to be so hard? Why shouldn't that be something we call natural, to be in a relationship? Because if we were naturally monogamous, you would pair up for life with the first person you have sex with in high school or whenever. That would be it. You pair up, first time, monogamous, done. But obviously we don't do that. We practice something that is probably more accurately called serial monogamy now, which is essentially polygamy whethout being able to keep their prior lovers. You've got to get rid of the old one before you can take on a new one in a serial monogamous chain of people, whether it's through marriage or just dating. And so that's what has become natural for us now, and we have to live with it. And so we have to work within that. That's the way it is. There are reasons how we got here, but to be happy, you have to work within this system. Or, I mean, there are people working around it, around the edges, like polyamorists have found a way to kind of get back towards tribe, they call it. There's very strict monogamous people. And Chris Ryan put it this way. He felt that monogamy is kind of like a spectrum, sort of like whether you're gay or straight or addicted, whether you can become addicted to nicotine. There's a bell curve, and we all fit somewhere on the bell curve. Extremely monogamous, not monogamous at all. Most people are somewhere in the middle of this bell curve, and then you can sort of be shaped and molded by whatever the society or your environment is in. If you lived in ancient Rome, you might, be moved towards homosexuality more than you would be in a very evangelistic society. Whatever it is, you will tend to move in the direction that everyone is going, so you can belong to your social group. And so people are finding new social groups that fit, that feel better, that fit who they want to, who they feel like inside. And happiness, right, is about fitting in partly.
Yeah. So that's really interesting that I like that concept of the spectrum. And it's even, we talk a lot about that in sexual orientation too, as sexual orientation is a spectrum between heterosexual and gay, or everything in between, right? Pansexual, and all these new like expressions and labels and everything like that. And so I think part of it is learning, and I think this is what you were sharing with your documentary, of presenting all of these different experiences and all these different perspectives to inspire self-inquiry for the person viewing it, of, okay, what's right for me? When you, along this project that you were doing, was this inspired for you? Was this inspired by a broken heart? Was this inspired by your own experience of relationship? Or
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All my failures have motivated me and fueled this desire to do better. I felt like I'd failed so many times in relationships. And in looking back, I had sabotaged many relationships in order to try to, at the time, I was trying to feel better, right? We're all in pain, and we're trying to not feel so unloved, unwanted, or we want to be wanted better, or wanted for who we are. There's an old joke. It's like, I love you, change, right?
Yeah.
So, that's not fair to say to someone, I love you, but you need to change into someone I can love better.
Yeah.
You have to love someone for who they are. So I had been failing in my relationships. I'd been in love 3 times, actually. The way you know you're in love is because it's so painful when it ends.
What? No, I do not believe that.
That's how I knew. And each of those times I was imagining myself with this person forever and getting married and maybe having children and all those fantasies. And then it would end. I was like, how did that happen? And now I have a much better idea how and why that happened. But at the time I was just bewildered and confused. One time I was in such pain that for the first time in my life, I sought out a therapist. And I met with her I got a referral from a friend and met with her, and she said, what are your goals? And I said, well, I'm looking for, I guess, some kind of help, some advice, some coping strategies for how I can progress and feel better. And she
Mhm.
said, okay, let's do it. And she gave me those. And one of the best pieces of advice she gave me was, right now you are feeling like you have lost control
Mm.
because you had given your ability to be happy to someone else. It was in their power to make you happy or unhappy by their behavior or choice to be with you or not. And so what you need to do is regain control of your life in order to
Wow.
get back to a baseline of your own control and happiness. And so to do that, what you'll have to do, and it's not easy, is cut off all contact with this person 100%. Because we hadn't, she was still emailing me occasionally, and you can't not respond, right? Because you're
Sure.
grasping for crumbs and want to get back together and work it out. And
Like
she
a
was,
drug.
yes, you are physically, literally addicted to someone's chemicals.
Yeah.
You have a chemical match with somebody, and you're getting a burst of dopamine and oxytocin every time that you interact.
Mhm.
You've got to cut it off. You've got to go cold turkey to get there faster. And so
Oh,
that was one of the things she told me, and I did it, and it helped.
yeah. Yeah. Did you ever have that continue? Have you ever had a continuing relationship, like a friendship with an ex before?
Yes, I mean, the third of those three people that I was very much in love with, we are still good friends to this day.
Hmm.
But the other two I've never spoken with since. And
Yeah.
so it's really bizarre, isn't it, how you can be so in love with someone and then never speak to them again?
Yeah. Yeah. Hurts
It's
my heart.
weird, right? It shouldn't be that way, right? It should, right? Should. What does it mean? Who decides what should or shouldn't be?
Yeah.
But this is what happens because we get so invested in someone else having control over our lives and us wanting to control their lives. One of the definitions of love that one of the authors, psychologists, told me was, love is wanting to monopolize sexually and socially someone else. And that's a very clinical way of looking at it, right? But we do get into this position of ownership, feeling like we own somebody else.
Mm.
And you can't own anybody, right? You can't, it's not fair. And to bring it towards sex, when you try to be controlling of someone else and with them all the time, and it's what happens is this, the word is habituation. You become if you're together the more you're together, the more alike you become, and the less passion there is, because familiarity and passion are opposites. And so you have to not control and grab and this sense of propriety. You've got to let someone go in order to increase your passion again. You've got to allow each other to be individuals who are together. You're both, right? There's you, me, and the relationship, sexually and emotionally. And you can't meld it all into one and we're one all the time, or you'll diminish passion.
Yeah, it's like we lose the interest, the challenge of the thing, because we already know everything about that, and when there's this sense of security there, which is love, like love is safety, love is security. But then, if it's always going to be there, do we desire it?
Yeah, well, it's like if you eat the same food every day, you're going to start to take it for granted, and you're going to want a different meal eventually. And human beings and relationships are not that different. Really, it's an appetite. It's a need that we have to fulfill. We're horny, right? Our grandparents, our great-grandparents were horny. If they weren't, well, if your great-grandparents weren't horny, you wouldn't be here today. It's natural. It's a requirement for the species. And so sex is a very powerful urge, and it's a need, and you can't, if you try to suppress it, it'll come out in other more negative ways.
Lovers, thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe and head over to eatplaysex.com to connect with me and grab my sexy guides. Because my goal here is to get you to eat, play, and sex better, so you can improve your sex life, which will improve every aspect of your life. Until next time, keep it sexy.